biggest thing that brings us together tonight is Wade's heritage around saving seeds. We want to make sure we've got a list and a catalog of his seeds, making sure that as we go forward, that these seeds are planted on maybe some of your land or some of your farms, that these seeds are preserved because they're the Yancey County heritage. They're a part of our sustainability in agriculture. And like we found out during COVID, we can not be able to buy seeds. We had a real struggle to get seeds in the past 2 years because just people were buying them and we didn't order early. So true seeds that Chris worked with at one time. So these are critical issues around saving seed. So I don't want to take up any more time. Wade, it's your show.
I'm going to kind of, we can get this right, give you a little bit of history of where we've been and come from all these years here in town. My parents started business here in 1954. And Dad was born in 1920, my mother in 1929. My dad had 8 brothers and sisters, my mom 11. And you've heard the term preppers. Well, they were preppers before preppers were cool. Because if they didn't make their crops, they didn't eat. And about 6 or 7 miles down on Jacks Creek, where my father was raised, my mom born and raised over in Mitchell County. So they pretty much had to keep seed, save things, keep it going. So as I grew up, and Dad started the greenhouse business in about 58 or 9. So I'm 64, I've been in it all my life. And when you have, people coming in, good farming type people, and you can pick up a lot of good tips on how to grow things, how to take care of things. So that's where we're at today. We're down on Cherry Lane, but I'm gonna give you some places that we have been here in the county. And 1954, the first store was right here on the square between the old courthouse and the old post office. Him and a cousin borrowed $800, opened a little variety store. It was L&M Variety, Letterman and McCourry. December the 7th. They wasn't doing hardly any business. The cousin panicked, wanted to get out, so they made a give or take, and it became Troy's Variety. And he moved from there down to, I'm not sure if this is the name of the new restaurant, Southwestern Pacifico. He was in that building in the late 50s. Ran it over, full of stuff, true variety store. Moved right here on the square where Wells Fargo Bank is, big 3-story building. That's where the first greenhouse was built, beside that store. And you got to make a couple of big gardens every year. And back then, very limited on your supplies for greenhouse supplies. It was a little different then. So had to make do with things that they could get to sell the plants in. And so he started saving seed at that time. A lot of good heirloom stuff, keep it going, so he'd have it year after year. Wasn't that already available to every little farm store, the things that he was wanting to grow in the containers. So, but that was in the late 50s, early 60s. From that store building, we moved up in the corner, right here in between the First Baptist Church and the business right there. There was a store in the corner. 2 or 3 years later, sold that business. We still had a couple of greenhouses in a different place, and moved down above Jill's Airport, where those apartments are. Had 2 big long greenhouses there. And at that time, my second cousin, sitting back here, Wade Renfro, he was helping us, and I was about 14 years old. So we had to, when I come in from school, you had to fix the dirt, run it through a dirt grinder, mix stuff with it, get ready for the ladies to have something to work with the next day. We had to go over across town to get the dirt that was dumped down there. So Wade would get out of the side of the greenhouse, let me slide over. I'd drive over there and drive back till we just got inside of the side of Dad, and he'd slide over and take over. So if you was in town in those years, I was driving at 14 back and forth through town. So that may be why I'm famous. I've been an outlaw all my life. So I flew pretty low to the ground a lot of years with hot rod cars. So, but we were there in the, it had been early 70s about then. They bought that property to build apartments, moved right across the street where the public parking lot is across from Jill's. Had 2 greenhouses there, trailer that we sold fabrics out of, and greenhouses on Cherry Lane, greenhouses on Meadow Road. So I was constantly hauling back and forth, trying to keep those filled up. So I was glad when we got it moved all down on Cherry Lane, where we are now. So, but we've always tried to keep good seed, plants, sell them at a reasonable cost, and I think that's why second generation's still going 68 years later. So all good folks like this that followed us all over town and traded with us all those years. So got a couple other things here. I'm going to go back to my father and mother. When they were raised, my dad said that would have been the Depression, Great Depression years there in the 20s and 30s. But he said until they read it from a little newspaper, they didn't know there was a depression. He said they'd have all kinds, like 100-gallon of molasses. They'd make 40-gallon of apple butter, 5 hogs they'd kill each year, 3 milk cows, 1 fresh all the time, had their milk or butter, chickens, 1.5 miles to the little store, down near Claremont School. It's called Daybook. And the man that run it had a little book that he kept his daily records in, and it was Dave Peterson, I believe. And he would keep his records in that book, and that's where it's got its name. They would take eggs and things and barter for what they didn't have on the farm. But they were pretty much self-sustainable at that time and selling a little timber and things to survive. And with that many children, they had their farm crew right there on site. So, but they come from that kind of families, and I think that's what Dad liked, doing that kind of stuff. And some of the little sayings I've seen, like, if you love your work, you never work a day. So I've always enjoyed it myself and laid right with it. So, and I meant to say there a minute ago when I got up here, the rumor's not true that everybody's been hearing and saying. I am not running for president in 1924. So. No, the rumor, they're thinking I'm quitting. I'm not quitting. If we do sell, and I'll be moving somewhere close to town and just downsizing a little bit. So make sure everybody in the county knows that you see. So I will probably be right on Cherry Lane with this year's crops and stuff, getting ready to crank up in a few days. And Patrick, where you at? Patrick Battle. Didn't see you when I come in there, bud. Patrick's been telling me, going back to Chris, talking about all these varieties of collards. Patrick's supposed to be getting me some varieties of collards this year, so hopefully we'll have some little bit more varieties of that sort of thing. And I've known Patrick now about 15 years, and if any of you don't know him, he works for Living Web Farms over in Mills River and has taught classes, and if you want to know organic stuff or about beneficial insects, he's your man. So he's sitting back there. And let's see here. I'm trying to keep some of this stuff because I knew I'd never think all this when I got started. Also, my father was a minister for 66 years and pastored 4 churches in that time. Started in his 20s. He was over, keep going on 19W across the mountain into Tennessee, a little church called Mountaindale. Was there for 2 or 3 years. He was in Old Fort down below Marion for 4 or 5 years. Irwin, Tennessee for 26 years. Drove back and forth, sometimes twice a week, all days on Sundays, running a store, running a greenhouse, but we got through it. And he was up in Pensacola, Free Will Baptist, the last 23 years of his life. So at least he had close to home in the last years there. So wanted to touch on that. Okay, going to get now into a little bit talking about seed. His favorite things was tomatoes. Always kept up with a lot of different tomatoes. I've still got, I'm going to say 12 or 15 of some varieties that have been around as long as I have about it, that he's kept going, and we've got a bunch of them. Still trying to do that. For any of you who want to save seed, things like tomatoes, pepper, all of that. They're easy to clean, easy to dry, store. So that's some easy things. Some of your seed, Chris will go on it, brassicas, cabbage, beets, carrots, things like that are known as biennials. Takes you sometimes almost 2 years to get the seed. You got to do it late, let it grow over the winter, mulch it in, then collect seed the next year when it grows up and blooms. A lot of people never seen a cabbage bloom. And so that's because you got to lay it over, let it go till the next year, bust open, stalk comes out, get your blooms, and then you have your seed. So things like that. And I was going to ask Chris if I joked with him there, but he's an okra man. He just needs to be down at the greenhouse when they come in and say they can't get okra to come up. They soak it in everything from kerosene to gasoline to buttermilk. I've heard it all over the years that they'll soak it. Simplest thing, throw it in the freezer and let it stratify, get it in good warm soil, and it's going to come up. But I didn't know if you'd have heard any of those or not, but we hear it all. They put it in everything to try to get that seed to crack open. But things like that, it's a little harder to save. You can still buy them now, but in this day and time, I'd have me some seed laid up. I'd have me some things that I like to grow, and if you don't have a place to put it in the freezer or refrigeration, get you some little oxygen packets, put it in a bag and vacuum seal it, put it in a cool place. It'll keep a pretty good while like that. I gave a friend of mine some Indian corn this past spring. Went down to the refrigerator in the germinating house. I thought there was some in there, and it was in Dad's handwriting, and he passed away in '09. It had been in there since 1993. That's what he had written on the bag. So I hand it to him. He looks at me like, I'm wasting my time. This ain't gonna come up. I'm just wasting my time. Come back in about 6 weeks, and he said, before I double and triple planned, Daddy said, I believe every last kernel of it come up. And it had been in that freezer for almost 29 years, 28, 29 years. So some things will keep longer than others, but I'm still sowing seed out of that refrigerator that he bought back in 2005, 2006. He would buy quantities of flower seed to get a cut price on it. And it's not all coming up 100%, but still coming up 80, 85%. And as long as it's refrigeration, dark place, it'll keep. So you might want to think about, keeping you a few things on hand. And I'm all about keeping it going. And all the time I want to try some new things. So Patrick maybe can get me some new collards, and might find some okras from Chris, and we can get some new plants going for the spring this year. Some things that let people here try and see how they like it. So, but young man that I met the other day, Philip Nugales, going to stand up, bud, and wave to everybody back there. Let them get to know you. New to our area, moved up to Miami, isn't it? He's going to be the one that Jim was telling you about that's going to try to help do some seed logging. He's going to be doing a project up towards CeeLo, growing stuff just to save some seed. So he's going to come here in a few days when I start sowing and get him acclimated to this weather. Let him not start planting in March, them tender crops that'll get frozen that everybody wants to do. So get him trained up kind of on the weather. That'll maybe help him a whole lot. And he's going to get into. I've got some seed that's been in the freezer that I'd love for, to get them planted and keep them going, because I've not been making a garden. What I've been doing the last 5 or 6 years, when I get low on a certain kind of tomato seed that I've kept for a long time, I'll plant 15 or 20 in 5-gallon buckets inside the greenhouse, grow them, then cut 2 bushel of tomatoes and get the seed out of it. So we don't always have to put it in a garden. And found some people been playing with putting like just a plastic roof on the side of a building, growing them pots and containers, keeping that water off of them. That helps with disease and blights and stuff. So you can grow it in a small area. You don't have to have 100 acres to grow food to supply your family and stuff. So a lot of raised beds going on. Works good, certain things. Now, you get some of them bigger crops like corn and stuff, you do need a little more land, and I understand that, but still a way to grow plenty of food. And been listening to done some research on it. saw a commercial back in the winter while the rodeo finals was on, and I believe the company's name is Pivot Tech or something like that. And they've come up with a nitrogen that will absorb onto the roots of corn, soybeans, and I believe they said wheat. And it will treat an acre for $20 versus $100 or $2 on systemic nitrogen. It's bad for the ozone layer, all of that stuff. So I want to research that a little more and see if they've got anything that can be sold like to our local customers for smaller amounts of seed, and see if it's good for food crops too. I mean, like, you know, sweet corns, that sort of thing. So been doing a little research on that. But we need to think about like where we're at today with the big farms, all the struggles that they have. 1 year of drought can really hurt our American farmers. So we've got to try to have a little bit of our own crops growing and think about the things that we need to have on hand. So I went through out west this year in Iowa and South Dakota, bad drought, another drought year. Things just burn up. And so, and our weather's changing. About need to have you a water source, it seems like anymore, just to do the small garden or the home garden, because we went through a big dry spell this fall, and a lot of things happening there. So, but I hope to keep doing it. Plan on trying to go a few more years, and we'll see how it goes. But a lot of people had saw like this celebration, and they just assumed I was retiring, I think. But I'm not hope to retire as long as I can stay healthy. I'm gonna keep doing it and try to stay at it. So I'm not gonna try to hold you all night, but I hope I'll give you a little bit of insight on where we've been, how we've done, and trying to carry on that old family tradition. So we'll keep doing it. I appreciate each and every one of you coming out tonight. And maybe another little thing I need to throw out there. Me and Jim have been talking about might do some kind of classes later on, do some kind of, need help with them, trying to teach them a little bit of seed sowing, that sort of thing. So that'd probably be through Mayland Tech. Might do it at home though. It might be down at the greenhouse. So keep your ears to the ground for that. It may be out there. So, but that's about what I had to say to y'all tonight. And I hope, like I said, I'll give you a little bit of information on what all we're trying to do and keep it going. So, I'm sorry? Oh, the seed? Yeah, the seed that y'all got tonight, that's all heirloom stuff. The Marglobe, Rutger, those are some good red tomatoes. Marglobe, it's globe-shaped. Good cannon tomato. The Rutger is a good cannon tomato. Good for slicing. Aroma, about everybody knows what aroma is, egg-shaped red tomato, good for sauces and cannon and salsas and stuff. Golden Jubilee, good little orange tomato. It'll about a 70-some day, I think, tomato on it. So there's enough in that pack till you ought to have 200 or 300 plants there. So just put them in a refrigerator when you get home. Keep them refrigerated. Sow you a few out of them this spring and enjoy them. And that way you'll have some for next year. Save you a few out of them. A lot of you, if you've never saved tomato seed, what we found the easiest, we'd take and cut the slices about 1 inch thick. Take a fillet knife, get the pocket of seed out in a big old bowl or a tub. Take that to the house, stick it on lukewarm, wire tea strainer, dump so much of that in there, pick any little pieces of peeling or the pulp out, let the water run the seed back off in there. You got it good and clean. A lot of people bring Dad's seed on a piece of paper towel. If you ever knew him, he was a mild man. That'd tear him up worse than anything in this world. Why did they put it on that paper towel? It won't come off there. Sit there and try to scrape it with a knife, paper towel tears. Put it on a piece of t-shirt or cotton cloth on top of paper towel, spread it out, let it dry, then put it in your refrigerator. Pepper seed, about the same way, those sort of things. But if you wanted to get Dad tore up, bring him a tomato seed on a piece of paper towel. He couldn't get off there. So now I wouldn't fuss. We just put them in a flat of dirt, cover them up, let them grow. They'd come through the paper towel when they got to growing. But Jim wanted me to tell you about the tomato seed, so that's there. And as he used to say, I've heard him say it many a time when he got through preaching, you're at liberty. Have a good night. And if I was going to tell them, if they want to know more, they can come see me at the greenhouse with my committee. I forgot my committee, Robert. I got a bunch of retired friends come down. We got some chairs. Wintertime, we can sit and talk. People come in and say, well, did so-and-so loafering today? I said, they're not loafers, they're committee members. So we could solve a lot of the world's problems if they'd listened to us in Washington, couldn't we? Yeah. Hey, Miss Amy.
So where are we going to buy all these seeds that you're going to be saving this spring?
Well, their seeds are there. All my seed are non-GMO, heirloom seed. You can save your own seed from. Seed that I sow are seed that I've saved. You know, a lot of times the heirloom tomatoes, some of the peppers, some of the collards, some of that sort of thing are seeds that we have actually saved over the years. So,
You're selling them?
yeah. Well, I don't sell the seed, I sell the plants.
Yes.
On those.
Of course.
But yeah, anything on that shelf down there except 2 items is heirloom, non-GMO. So.
But I'm saying, is it still going to be there when you're not?
Oh, well, I'm going to be for hopefully another 5 years. Hey, Elise. All right. You can. There's my girls. There's my girls. How are we? Come on this side over here. There's the Udden. I see these 2 more, though. That's my buddies. How you doing, little neighbor?
Doing
We was neighbors for a long time, wasn't we? I appreciate you coming. Yeah. We'll see you.